Hi, and welcome to Legally Insane News. I'm your host, Kyle O'Donnell. Find and follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Kyle O'Donnell, and head over to legallyinsanefilms.com to listen to my other podcasts, to read my books and articles, to check out my photos from around the world, and to watch my documentary films. Again, that's legallyinsanefilms.com.
One night back in 2005, I was with a couple of my friends, and one of my friends' brother was in town, and she wanted to go and visit him where he was at. We went to the Pine Street pub, and that's where him and his friends were. John Barnes was one of his friends. My friend wanted to leave, and she said, I'm going, whether y'all come or not, basically. And John said, don't worry about it. I'll bring you home. We had mutual friends, so I agreed. That was okay. I got inside his vehicle, and he did not bring me home. He brought me to his house. He proceeded to rape me on his living room couch. From that, I became pregnant. Found out, 9 weeks later.
Today we're returning to a story that's quickly developing and even more quickly grabbing headlines as the melodrama created by Krista Abelseth continues. In a revelation of items on a renewed timeline of events that's surfaced after Abelseth has sought news coverage, which ultimately caused the contentious story to go viral amid as yet unsubstantiated rape claims against John Barnes. Abelseth has emerged as a co-parent hosting what Barnes claims to be a, quote, revolving door of gentlemen callers. If you're not familiar with this story, I'm picking it back up. Krista Abelseth has, I don't know if she's officially filed rape charges, but she's made allegations of rape in a child custody case, which is probably the only reason she's able to get away with it, because the charges haven't actually been filed. But paying attention to the lineage of the circumstances, I saw something this morning on a news outlet that I checked. So just going to go into that a little bit. Basically, while sharing custody with Abelseth, Barnes claimed that, quote, men were coming in and out of my child's life. He continues to say, she had 3 husbands in 3 years, and he's obviously referring to Abelseth, and it wasn't healthy, end quote. He also claims that the courts have ruled that it violates a custody agreement that Abelseth has men over while his daughter is staying at her house. Now, frankly, I would kind of agree with that. I would think that, 1 or 2, I don't know what 1 or 2 means in most people's context, but I don't know. I'll keep my opinion on that one down. I don't have kids. I don't have custody battles. I don't really know what the ins and outs of that look like. I have dated single mothers before. And I could tell that it was weird for the dad. It was weird for me. Anyway, this morning, Fox reported that it had received court records revealing that Abelseth not only kept the child's identity a secret from Barnes for more than half a decade, she also pinned the illegitimate pregnancy on another man. This man happens to be a convicted felon named James Threaton. These records are reported to show that the child even bore Threaton's last name and for at least a time referred to him as Daddy. This is all per court records. While details are unclear as to the full length of the relationship, experts at the Baby Center, which is babycenter.org, I believe, the reference is on the article, say that babies are able to speak and understand one-word phrases at or after 1 year of age. So it would appear that Threaton was at least with Abelseth for that long, given the length of stays that Barnes is alleging men are staying at her house with her in this, quote, revolving door scenario. Making it a year is probably something of a record in that household. Who knows? But after several years in a contentious legal battle, during which time Abelseth allegedly muddied the waters by training her daughter that Threaton was the child's first father and that Barnes was only the girl's second, Barnes was understandably upset. Rather than filing false charges against Abelseth, however, Barnes petitioned the court for a resolution in the matter, specifically requesting that Abelseth stop bringing his daughter to see Threaton on prison visitation. That's right. The felon is back in prison, which is where Abelseth has been bringing Barnes's daughter. Such a healthy place for a daughter to be. If I was not a convicted felon, as Barnes is not, I would be pretty upset that my daughter was being brought to a prison to see some other guy. That would be pretty alarming, I think. And the court seemed to agree with that as they sided with Barnes yet again, barring the child from having any contact with Threaton. The timeline of court rulings also reveals quite a bit more than was originally claimed and released by Abel Seth, bringing questions into her very conveniently and timely claims in the wake of losing these other cases. In 2012, Abel Seth sued for child support, and Barnes was ordered to pay $450 a month. After this alleged series of custody violations by Abel Seth that apparently spanned 3 years, Barnes successfully countersued Abel Seth for sole custody of the child, citing Abel Seth's alleged court violations. He won in 2015. He also requested a financial assessment of Abel Seth's income, which Barnes alleged she was withholding to justify a lighter financial burden to Barnes and even avoid paying altogether. Barnes said that Abel Seth worked in cash industries to avoid taxable filings. In response, the court ruled that Abel Seth should be earning $80,000 or more with a master's degree that she's apparently not making very good use of as a waitress. The court also ruled that Abel Seth be required to not only pay more to Barnes monthly, but also pay retroactively in terms of the back rent, so to speak, on child support. In other words, based on court records, they found not only was she lying to the courts about seeing other men, which cost her her 50% custody of the child, she also was found guilty of lying to the court about her income, which then she was ordered to pay back retroactively. It seems interesting that this never would have happened had Barnes not taken any action. And this is a continuing pattern, because if Barnes hadn't taken any action in the first place, he never would have found out he had a daughter, because she was clearly going to keep maintaining that lie. Then he had to take action to get even 50% custody, which she violated, and now he had to continue making even more action to get sole custody, and yet again he had to take more action to get the courts to give them the two of them a fair assessment of one person's wages. The court also ruled that Abel Seth would be required to pay Barnes monthly. And if that wasn't enough, less than 1 month after that decision is when Abel Seth's infamous rape accusation was filed. In that affidavit, Abel Seth allegedly admitted to blacking out and waking up naked on Barnes's bathroom floor. Abel Seth also appeared in an obviously edited and pre-recorded video released to Fox News, in which she sort of pauses quite a bit and stumbles over what I can only presume to be coached language that very unconvincingly avoids topics and phrases that might, explain the questionable claims that she made in her initial report. I reported on these questionable items in my last article on this story, so it's worth noting that since then, she's decided to maintain the shadowy mystery concerning those questions. And an odd, if even more interesting coincidence is that she pauses right over the moments that I draw question into. I don't recall those right now because it's been about 5 minutes since I saw the video, but she pauses right over the times I'm like, wait a minute, I drew question into that. So head over to the first podcast that I made about this and listen to that, relate that to the updated version. But just watching Abel Seth sitting next to her little female advocate who's probably coached Abel Seth on what to say in the video, you'll get a much better impression of Abel Seth's objectives. And here's a woman who has so many felonious sexual partners that the court has had to intervene and keep Barnes's daughter safe. She's been caught in a years-long lie that would have seen her daughter completely unaware of her father had he not stepped up and acted. And she's lost case after case for her behavior. Yet here she sits in this video dressed very nicely, very, conservative, church-worthy clothing on, with her hair and makeup flawless. And she thinks that because she landed the first few jabs on a man-bashing strategy to win a custody battle, that she's going to come across as this angelic and innocent victim. But the facts don't tell the same story. I think I should point out here that she's been wrapped up in this bitter feud with Barnes since 2005, and she's consistently lost that battle primarily because of her own lifestyle, not Barnes's lifestyle. Barnes doesn't go in and out of jail. He doesn't have a background that anybody's reporting on in the news. He's not dating felons. He's not bringing his daughter to dangerous places like prison. There's no mention that Barnes, does drugs or engages in dangerous lifestyle activities. He's well over the drinking age at the time that they met at the bar. He didn't have to lie about his age. I haven't seen anything reported in any news agencies that's so much as a bankruptcy. They've also apparently been able to find out that he makes more than 6 figures annually and that he's continuously been employed for the entire time that his daughter was alive. So the complete opposite of Abel Seth's reputation is true of Mr. Barnes. I'd be very shocked if the courts find him guilty if rape allegations are leveled against him. And here's the other thing. She's only got 2 more years until this battle is over, right? Because the child is now 16 years old. And they haven't reported her name, but when she turns 18, there will be no more items to quibble over, right? So my opinion, and I'm just stating this as an opinion alone, it's pure speculation, but my opinion is that Abel Seth is trying to start the process now that will see Barnes in jail before her window closes on an opportunity to land any final blows. I mean, this guy's won case after case. She's claiming everything she can think of, rape, that she didn't lie to him. She apparently lied to everybody else in the bar, but somehow didn't lie to him. She's brought him back in court. She's on various claims. And each time Barnes has beaten her at her own game. So why would she not want to, take the last 2 years, as an opportunity, to really do some damage to this guy? And she already is. She's already taken that, route. She's, you claim false rape against a man. I don't know. If he gets convicted, I would just be hugely surprised. The assumption that the courts don't know that he's the father of a 16-year-old girl who, when the mother was 16, he was 30. Like the assumption they didn't know that in all of these cases that have gone to court. If he hasn't been put in jail by now, I'm positive that no rape allegations are going to be successful if levied against him. But in either case, why else would she even be worried about it? Or at least to this extent. I mean, outside of the back child support, she only owes Barnes, I think, $117 a month per the latest court ruling. So if she really can't financially hang on to a $117 note for the next 2 years, that's $2,400, right? It's not, you can't even buy a car for that much, right? And she's sort of bickering about it. And if in all the time that she spent in court hasn't proven to her that she doesn't have the statistical probability of winning by now, I think the only reasonable victory that she can expect to take home from this entire experience is to destroy Barnes's credibility and his reputation, everything that the court of public opinion very widely and irresponsibly rules on a daily basis. I think every woman knows that once a man is labeled a rapist, his reputation will never recover. This has been proven time after time after time. Hi, everyone. This is your host, Kyle O'Donnell. If you've been listening to this podcast for a little while, you probably already know that I undergo a lot of research and spend a lot of time writing and recording and editing and uploading and sharing on social media. It's quite a bit of work. I also order background checks on perpetrators. I pay for public records requests. And of course, I cover all of the expenses of keeping my media online. I do all this because I love journalism and sharing stories that are important. And if you think I'm doing a good job, why not show your support? For just $3, you can become a supporting member and get full access to all the complete ad-free episodes, early access to all the episodes that are announced at legallyinsanefilms.com. You can also gain access to all those background checks and insider case files that I use in my stories. And as a supporting member, you'll also get access to several other podcasts that I do as well. If that wasn't enough, I've also spent many, many years abroad, capturing hundreds of thousands of images and filming literally dozens and dozens of documentaries from 43 countries across 4 continents. And my supporting members have access to all of that work. To join up, head over to legallyinsanefilms.com and click Join the Fan Club. That's legallyinsanefilms.com and scroll down to Join the Fan Club. Thanks for sticking around. We'll be right back after this break. I think every woman knows that once a man is labeled a rapist, his reputation will never recover. This has been proven time after time after time after time and time again. I'll go ahead in the article that I'll write about this. I'll pledge right now, I will find more than 20 cases. More than 20 cases. And I will post those in the research for the article. Go there and find it. It'll be up by the time you hear this podcast. But back to Abel Seth's video. So her advocate then, after all of this, jumps in and claims that Barnes has engaged in an anti-American campaign in Congress with the court system to steal his daughter and literally get away with rape.
It really is horrifying. I mean, honestly, when I started hearing all the details, like I said, when they came to me and started giving me all these details, I'm just sitting there listening like, this cannot be America. You know, this just cannot be America. How in the world is this going on? It's the whole situation is ludicrous.
It's not enough that no one believes a decades-long series of lies that Abel Seth has been spouting for years. Now she's trying to wrangle in the conservatives on the claim that you're un-American if you don't believe her. Nothing could be more patriotic than believing us that Barnes is a rapist. Sorry. That's, when she talks, that's what it sounds like in my head. Anyway, it should also be noted that Barnes has apparently navigated the courts. He's cleared the sheriff's department. He's survived rape allegations to the police department. He's been given custody after Child Protective Services has most probably been involved. He's been cleared by medical examiners against rape allegations. He's successfully fought to keep his daughter away from the imprisoned felon that Abel Seth kept bringing her to, and who knows what else he's had to do just to keep his daughter throughout this process. But I think in his own words, he sums it up best. Quote, "All I've been trying to do is protect my daughter." This is what Barnes told Fox Digital. Quote, "There's no way in hell I have influenced several very high-level organizations that are geared toward protecting children's rights and safety into sweeping her claims of rape and child abuse under the rug." End quote. But even after all this, Abel Seth is now claiming that Barnes has drugged and raped their teenage daughter. Yes, this is in addition to all of the stuff that she has previously alleged. This is why this is a continuing saga, right? After all of this stuff, she's now claiming that Barnes, who fought to get his daughter away from her, is now drugging and raping her. With the spotlight of the entire nation on him, he's going to drug and rape his own daughter, after apparently never having done it before. The allegations were filed in a February 2021 affidavit signed by Abel Seth, stating that Barnes had, quote, drugged and sexually assaulted the child 2 nights in a row. Just can't get your rocks off once. You got to do it twice. And that's a direct quote from the allegations filed in the affidavit. And in that affidavit, she also cited her own rape allegations from earlier, which, by the way, have since been dismissed through the courts. Quote, "I suspect drugs were used by him to sedate me when I was unable to move while he raped me. Now it is alleged that he has committed the same heinous crime on our 15-year-old daughter." End quote. There's so much wrong with this. She says now it is alleged that he has committed the same heinous crime. Okay, even though she says alleged in there, she also is saying that he committed the same heinous crime. Like, he was never convicted of a first heinous crime or any crime whatsoever, actually. But now he's guilty of committing it on a 15-year-old girl that also happens to be the daughter he fought for. So I'm going to move on from that. I can't find any reports prior to this February 2022 account where Abel Seth had claimed that he used drugs on her in their encounter 16 years prior. But I'm willing to bet that is because it doesn't exist. I would imagine that if I were in a newsroom, I'd be looking for that. If you have access to those records, you'll have access to that information. And maybe I'll just search that out myself. But in 2 pivotal actions since she filed her claims against Barnes in February, the courts have twice again sided with Barnes, right? 2 times since those allegations, they've sided with Barnes, and they were very pivotal decisions. The first of these actions was a restraining order that Abelseth filed with the courts, which awarded her emergency custody of the child. And anybody can have one of these. They're considered pro se, which means by one's self, like meaning without the other person even needing to be in attendance, which could be argued as unconstitutional, but I understand why they exist. She was, in fact, awarded emergency custody after making these allegations, but Abelseth apparently dismissed the restraining order through her attorney, claiming to be homesick with the flu at the time of the hearing that would ultimately decide whether or not to continue that injunction and keep the child in her, I'll say, possession, in her custody. And that is very interesting. Abelseth claimed to be at home sick with the flu, and she sent her attorney to dismiss the thing, probably because of the second very important action in the case, which occurred just prior to that hearing where she didn't show up. On March 18th, the second of these actions came in the form of a ruling that outright refused all criminal charges against Barnes. Now, we're talking about charges have been dismissed for, or not charges, but allegations of rape against Abelseth were dismissed. I believe it was back in, I want to say 2005. And then Abelseth's second attempt to convict Barnes of rape was dismissed against Barnes, citing, quote, medical evidence does not support the allegations in the petition. In other words, they took the child away from Barnes, they put her with her, they did a medical examination on the child, and it failed any standard for rape, right? Forcible entry or whatever they call it. That's what they're saying. And this is directly from the court record. So the more that emerges about this timeline, the more questionable it seems. And I'm so glad that I spoke up on my first article about this, my first podcast, because it's a tough thing to do to back somebody. It's a tough thing to do who's been accused of rape, to back him. Nobody wants to back an alleged rapist, right? Because what if it turns out to be that they're actually a rapist? Well, if you listen back to several points, to several, times throughout the last podcast, the last article I wrote about this, I'm not backing Barnes. I'm defending Barnes against rape allegations that haven't been adjudicated. But more importantly, I'm absolutely not defending the actions of the journalist who have never, automatically took her side, automatically convicted him in the court of public opinion, never used the word alleged, always stuck to their side that he was a rapist. Like, he's never been found guilty of rape. So I'm not backing Barnes. I hope the best for him, seriously, but what I'm attacking here is journalistic ethics. Nobody should be convicting an accused murderer, rapist, anything, until a judge says that, which is why we have those rules. And I'm not going to say unspoken rules. We have very written rules. Like, that's like journalism 101. They have somehow forgotten their education in the field of journalism to at least make an attempt to, be assumed as making ethical judgments in journalism. It's just a tragic story either way. And again, this man could still be convicted of it. I hope he doesn't. I hope that the timeline of events comes out. I hope that the news, this is the other thing that depresses me about this, because the news has been harping on this part of it. But let's just say that Barnes is refused. These charges are refused if they are levied. I wonder if they're going to cover that as much, right? I'm positive that they would cover it if he was convicted. I'm positive of that. And I hope that the courts don't bend to that pressure from the media. But we'll be keeping an eye on this story as it unfolds. I'll say that much. I really hope that the courts don't go there, fold under the pressure from the liberal media or any media. I don't think it's necessarily liberal media, but you can tell the pattern. One story that I got from Fox News at least gives a timeline of the events. The other stories, I can only assume, were coming from left-leaning media and various enterprises on the left that just hop on board. We're talking about Facebook, right? Is there anybody that denies Facebook as a left-leaning media platform at this point? I think not. But anyway, they clearly have wanted blood for little more than accusations from a woman with a clear pattern of lies, court violations, and very conveniently timed claims against Barnes that now span decades. That's it for this edition of Legally Insane News. Make sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Kyle O'Donnell for updates and extras on this and other stories. If you're listening to this podcast at legallyinsanefilms.com or the Small Town Justice page, be sure to also download the Spreaker app, where you can directly subscribe and help me bump up my download totals. If you like this episode of Legally Insane News, consider becoming a supporting member. For just $3, you can get access to members-only unreleased articles and podcasts, case files on our latest investigations, updates for events and conventions that we're attending, and discounts on swag. To do that, just head over to patreon.com/legallyinsanefilms. There are 3 different memberships, each with more content than the one before. This is where I release all of my documentary films with outtakes and extras, as well as another podcast called Small Town Justice. You can check those out by going to legallyinsanefilms.com and clicking Join the Fan Club. Send any questions, comments, feedback, and show ideas to thejusticepod@gmail.com. This has been a production of Legally Insane Films, LLC. I'm your host, Kyle O'Donnell. We'll see you next time.